terms of talking about the kinds of campaigns that we can support. I know plenty of people, the federal government is excited, and I'm encouraged by the rise of programs that are investing in apprenticeships.
Yes.
Because our viewpoint around job training is evolving to it's not just enough to like train people. You know, we all remember maybe 10, 15 years ago, it was all the rage. I'll teach people how to do solar panels. We were training people for everything. But you have to put a training and connect it to a job, right? Connect it to an actual outcome.
Right.
So I'm encouraged by apprenticeship programs and other things that we know actually do work to raise people out of poverty.
I agree. And as we talk about the green economy, how we move people out of, particularly here in LA County, the oil sector, you know, we were proud to bring the measure before the board to, you know, end oil drilling as we know it across LA County, given the impact it has on far too many communities. And the reality is we have to transition those people into just transition into new jobs in the new sector. So how do we do the training and how do we build the green economy for people to really transition to? So as I look around the room, there are some community organizer leaders, but there are a bunch of people who like go to work every day and they say, well, I'm not a community organizer. What role do I play in this? You give them your answer, I'll give them my answer.
You all play a really critical role, particularly at this time. I know it hasn't come up on this panel, maybe because we're thinking so much about California. The national picture is that there is a part of, you know, everybody talking about Project 2025, but it's true that a part of that agenda is to ban essentially these conversations. You know, they want to ban the tracking of racial statistics, which takes away our capacity to raise up issues around racial inequality, right? The places and spaces where we can continue to insist, where we just go to work, that these conversations, that this kind of data measurement, that these kind of efforts are not a moment, right, in time, but this is how we do our work. Our commitment to racial justice is not a phase, although sometimes it can feel like, oh, that was the George Floyd moment. We have to push back against that, particularly up against what the national picture looked like with so much white supremacy trying to drown these conversations out. We need our voices to be louder than ever in whatever space you are, to continue to insist that these conversations and our action is necessary.
I agree. And I think that you all have the responsibility to share what you heard and learned today, that you may not be a full-time community organizer, but I hope that there is someone that you will share the concept of the book, you'll share the book with, share one data point, one statistic that you heard about why the zero-sum game harms us all. Wherever you live on the race, class, gender, socioeconomic spectrum, zero sum pulls us all down. And so I'm hoping that you all will find and create spaces like this to have conversations. I always tease, you know, it is really exciting at my house for Thanksgiving and dinner and Christmas because we have real talk around the table, multi-generational, real talk on my own block when I'm taking my trash cans out and I'm engaging with my own family, friends, and neighbors about how we define what kind of LA County we want to raise our children in and grow old in with dignity. And it really is up to us. It's not just up to me as your elected leader. Now, I'm not shying away from my responsibility, but I can't do it alone. Hence, Racial Justice Learning Exchange, where we come together, unpack our own implicit, explicit biases, and repack with new information and data that we learn and in shared space and community with each other. Thank you.
Thank you.
For enlightening
Thank you all for
us.
listening. Thank you for being here.
I'm going to hand you back over to Mr. Webb.
Thank you, guys. What a wonderful discussion. So in the interest of time, I'm going to transition us to the breakout group discussions. Can you guys hear me? Oh, yes, you can. Okay. So I'll introduce our breakout discussion group leaders. They'll raise their hands. Look for the number that's on your name tag around the room. I'm sorry. All right. And then we'll also have team members holding up signs like April. So listen for your group number. So for group 1, we have Aisa Conchola Banez from the Student Borrower Protection Center. and you guys will be talking about student debt crisis, indeed, and the cost of education. For Group 2, the director of the County Department of Consumer and Business Affairs, Rafael Carbajal, they'll be talking about the foreclosure crisis and predatory mortgage lending. Group number 3, for poverty alleviation, we have Director Christina Mesa from the County CEO Poverty Alleviation Initiative. She's back there, and yeah. Well, she's just the number holder, but the leader's in the back. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. So group number 4 is healthcare and access to health insurance, led by Professor Vicki Mays from the UCLA Center for Health Policy Research. She's around somewhere. She's right there, seated. And that's group 4. Group 5 is redlining, zoning, and housing with Caroline Bala, who you guys heard read the land acknowledgement. Number 6 is labor unions and workers' rights. We have Janelle Bailey from the LA Black Workers Center. Somewhere. Okay, cool. That's group number 6. Group number 7, environmental justice. We have Fernando Gaitan from Earth Justice. Behind me. There he goes. That's group number 7. And group number 8, we have Sunny Wakneen from the UCLA Voting Rights Project. She's standing right there. All right, let's commence. Yes. So just meet up by where you see the sign posted. There are a couple outside. 7 and 8 are outside. Lucky you get fresh air. Yeah. 5 is in the kids section, and 6 is up front. All right.
And we'll be coming back at 6:15 to share out your policy suggestions. to the general discussion so we can share out all of the wonderful ideas that we've talked about. I'm so thrilled that everyone was so excited.
And if you guys could semi-reorganize the chairs back so we can make room for people to come back. And please identify at least one person in your group to share out who's going to speak. All right.
Okay, if you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, clap. One. We're bringing it back. If you're still talking, feel free to bring it back. We're going to start the share-outs. Tyler, take it away. We'll bring the mic.
You can raise your hand and we'll bring a mic to you.
Okay, if you want to come up, you can, but I'll run to you with a mic.
Let's do that.
Okay. You want to start us?
Yeah, so who wants to go first?
Group 1, you want to come up?
Well,
Who's coming up from Group 1? You want to come up? You're 2.
Group 1, right here.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, good evening again. And we're Group 1. Our solution is basically to how to avoid the student debt.
Okay.
So we have just a few suggestions that we think are great. One is to start a savings account for every child that's born, which this savings account will pay for their college. Another one is to hold large companies liable so that they actually hire kids right out of high school and they pay for their college with no attachments. And I am a living witness for that. I actually, after high school, my first job was at the Boeing Company. They paid for my AA, my 4-year, my master's, and my doctorate. But of course, my kids are just the opposite. They're not working at Boeing. So they have student loans, and I have student loans for them. So I'm in the same situation as everyone else after all. Also, we want to make sure that for-profit colleges don't have predatory, I didn't get to finish writing that, but I think it's predatory loans or payback, something like that. Higher interest loans, yeah. And then finally, I know at West Angeles CDC, where I work, we teach financial literacy. And basically, we end up starting off with adults or people in college, but now we're starting to go to the elementary schools. And that way the kids learn early, about student loan and just how to handle debt, period, so that hopefully they don't have any. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
What was your name?
Belinda Allen.
Belinda Allen. Give it up for Belinda.
Woo.
Just real quick, we have a brief survey for everybody, so people are going to start passing those out right now, and you can hand them to a team member on your way out. Without further ado, Group 2, that rhymed.
And Group 2 is the foreclosure crisis.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
My name is Kane Nicholas. We're representing group number 2 with the foreclosure crisis. And we took a lot of time.
You got to hold the mic a little closer.
Sure. Shouldn't have been a rapper. What we did is we spent a lot of time just hearing other individuals who had some interesting and unfortunate experiences with going through foreclosures. We had about 3 of those examples. One of the ideas that came out was around a clearinghouse of where to report and how. But it was a two-way street, one coming from the community and stakeholders, but also having the banks and financial institutions having a cleared product list or some sort where people could see and know that it's okay for the community before going out to the public, or at least on some type of filtering that this is an approved list. So that was one of the main ideas that came out of group number 2. The secondary idea was getting more involved with DCBA, and the third was a estate planning component, whereas having a place to go to before your home approaches a foreclosure, and then if there's a proper mechanism, how to learn about wills and estates. So that was a wrap up for group number 2.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Group 3?
Poverty alleviation? Can we do it from here? Sure you can.
You absolutely can.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Lee. Hello, everyone. I'm Shanita Rogers.
Hello.
And in our discussion, we came up with a couple of points in terms of poverty alleviation. The first, we talked about removing barriers to access services, including systemic biases, like we know that can occur at the DPSS or Department of Child and Family Services. Some of those things where we walk in the door and we know that the people that are there to serve us already create barriers to service. Also, we talked about reform on program requirements from the county, federal, and state level, many of them being too stringent, both for individuals that are applying for different services, but also when we talked about our nonprofits, where we have the smaller nonprofits, there's requirements that they cannot meet, so thus they cannot be funded. So that necessarily knocks us down a notch for being able to get the things that we need. Also, more support for our nonprofits, especially our smaller ones, where we talk about microfunding, but another young lady here, Miss Olivia, shared with us about the value of the city government and also the foundations that we should be looking to, and more collaboration and support so that we do have more local support, local neighborhood level support, but also to help raise up those nonprofits in our area that a lot of times you hear they started a business, but then they had to go work the real job because they couldn't get funding and all of those things. And then also making more multi-funding projects versus this pilot where we get 1 year and we go and try to make a dent and we can't do it. And of course, raising the wage. So that way we can be able to do the work and people will be more motivated to be in some of the jobs where we need to do a little bit more, we need to help a little bit more. So that's what we have. But one thing I was telling the group, since I have been working with and following Supervisor Mitchell since she was in the state level, she has been bringing those things to us. And as she mentioned today, for some events, sometimes the people weren't there. But then also considering in our neighborhood, we have a lot of working people, even the ones running the nonprofits. So many of the good intents of bringing resources to us, they may not have been at good timing. So maybe 11 o'clock on a Tuesday is not good because we're trying to run the nonprofit. So if we do something at a different time where we can be able to take advantage and also continue to bring together conversations like this so that we can hear what's going on in our different neighborhoods.
Thank you so much.
Before group 4 comes up, I have somebody's notebook. I'm not sure whose it is. It was just given to me.
We also have seats in the front and over to the side. If you're standing on the corner, come through.
Group 4?
Are you okay?
Thank you, everyone. I am Vicki Mays. I had the privilege of being the facilitator for a wonderful Group 4. We are healthcare and healthcare access. One of the first things we talked about is the need to change the narrative. And what that means is understanding when it comes to health that the ill health in one can impact all others. And it's a very good time to do that because in COVID we began to understand that. So when one person is without services who has a mental health problem, that creates problems for other people. We have one person, for example, who has dementia and wanders away, then we have to call the fire department, the police department, and everybody else. So the narrative and the storytelling to understand, if we deal with what McGee talks about, which is this, kind of like some gain and loss, it helps us to understand we're all in this together and that the cost is to others as well. Second point that we expanded on in many different ways, and we're going to hope the supervisor can do something about it, and that is in terms of education. We have not a big enough workforce when it comes to healthcare, when it comes to mental health, when it comes to dental and vision care. And so we need to understand how, for example, to make our educational institutions more accountable for producing other than academics like me, but I actually do healthcare too. But we need to make them more accountable for the production of that workforce. We need to incentivize them to do it. We have a master education program, but we need to understand how to get people out. We need to also, though, make sure that not everybody who thinks that they could do this stuff by just standing up and doing it knows what they're doing. So we want to see people credentialed. When you talk about trying to teach about diversity in the health area, we were told to talk about things like intersecting identities and what that means when you come in to get services. Mm-hmm. Everybody can't do it. And I also think that just this one little, I had a course when I was in graduate school. No, we're going to make sure that your licensure is on the line, that when you take your exams, you have to pass it. We're going to make sure that your institution, as part of its accreditation, has to stand up and also make sure that it passes whatever standards that we say are there. And thirdly, we're going to make sure that we create a way in which when people feel disrespected, that they can be reported by not just the patient, but healthcare workers as well, and without any retribution. So we're going to start making the system have to be accountable, but yet protecting the people that want to voice the need for the change. And I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything else. Bill, I know. I'm just trying to be like everybody else and get all my stuff in. I don't want to be different. And lastly, we talked about a Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights is not, we have one for patients, but we don't have the protection and the kind of the public safety needs for healthcare workers. So I'm done now.
Thank you very much. Group 5.
Okay, tell us what group you were in.
Good evening. Well, almost evening, everyone. I'm Rochelle, and I was in Group 5. We did redlining, zoning, and housing. So the things I want to report out are, we kind of had some common themes: reclamation, reparations, equity. Those are some of the themes that came through in our discussions. The first thing, the primary thing I think that we wanted to suggest is that there'll be more of an oversight in terms of how the county is investing in distributing money for projects, and that those things be more equity-based, and so that everyone is lifted up in the county, not just certain sectors and certain communities. So that was our chief report out. Another suggestion was zoning. We had someone who felt very strongly that the zoning structure that we currently have that prohibits multifamily zoning in certain areas, that should be revisited, and that multifamily housing should be available more broadly across the county so that more affordable housing can be created for those that need it. Another is to land reclamation. We all know about land that was taken from people of color, the 105, the 210, I mean, we can go on and on, the 710. Looking at how to sort of find ways to creatively either return that land or to pass it on to people of color, use it for purposes that will, I guess I would say, purposes that would allow people of color to advance and build wealth and have affordable housing as well. And then just sort of our catch-all is to simply tax the rich.
Love it. Okay. Oh.
Group
Wait.
6. Where's she going? Sorry.
Who's in Group 6?
Group 6. All right.
Hey, everyone. I was facilitator and now designated share-out person as well.
What's your name?
My name is Gregory Lewis. I'm from the Los Angeles Black Worker Center. Our group was focused on jobs, unions, and labor. I'll be brief, and I know y'all might have to correct me. But just starting us off and grounding us, we know that in LA County, 50% of black people are either unemployed or underemployed, meaning they're working multiple jobs. In March of 2020, at the beginning of the pandemic, 85% of black workers in California filed for unemployment. So we know that there's a crisis with black folks in the city, in the state. We have worked on identifying some of those issues, but going to solutions. So working with community-based orgs, this is things that the county can do. Working with community-based organizations to fill vacancies at the county, having an apprenticeship that is a component of that, the apprenticeship having a living wage, and it also, there's a budget from the county that is allocated to these programs to make sure that folks can get in. And using the county as an example, we're hoping, as there is a lot of vacancies at the county, folks, private industries can start to take notice and really look towards the county for inspiration. We heard about civil service reform, how mostly white men are able to get into, pass the civil service exam you need to do to work at any public sector job. So reforming that to make it a little bit more equitable so folks are able to get into those jobs and it not take 7 years, a year, 2 months, I don't know. And then the last thing that we discussed was a community benefits agreement. I think one of the presenters at one point said that a lot of schools are closing in Inglewood. So we know that there's no community benefits for these institutions who come into our neighborhoods, and they gentrify people out, they close our schools. So at the county level, when things are being approved, what is the community benefits agreement that we can sign into law that each developer organization must adhere to, so folks aren't being priced out of their neighborhoods, and there are actually benefits to our community institutions. And I think that, is you looking at me?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I just want to say more to come, because I think you previewed a couple of motions that Supervisor Mitchell has worked on, so we care a lot about that.
Were we on Group 7? I'm losing count. I'm sorry. Group 7?
Environmental justice. Who's coming up from that group?
Cool.
Hi, everyone. I'm Fernando Gaitan. We, Group 7, spoke about environmental justice, and I have to say thank you, Supervisor Mitchell, for getting this all together, because the brain trust was right here. Talking, getting right into it, getting right into the sum of us and some of the themes there. So we started off talking about defining environmental justice, and folks came up with some really excellent explanation of what that means. It means, putting factories, putting polluting activities, putting refineries in our neighborhoods, in communities of color, in poor neighborhoods, forcing these communities to bear the burden for the rest of us in terms of what happens. Putting warehouses in poor communities so that we can all get our just-in-time orders from Amazon, right? Toxic dumping in communities of color based on the racist legacy of redlining, right? So that, our communities of color were forced to live in certain areas, and those same areas were the same areas that were dumped on with all sorts of toxic chemicals and what have you. And then also the lack of biodiversity. So killing off plants, not enough trees, not enough bird species in certain neighborhoods, while others get to live in this like beautiful, idyllic setting. But we did not ignore the fact that, despite this, no matter where you live in our region, we all share the same air, we all share the same water, we all share the same soil. And so what happens in Inglewood, what happens in East LA, what happens at the Port of Los Angeles and Long Beach does not stay there. That air pollution is air that we all share. And once that pollution's in the air, you can't unring the bell, or at least it's very hard to do it. So it's out there, it's there, and we all have to breathe it. So we got to stop it before it gets out there. And so then we started talking a little bit about that concept of in The Sum of Us, the book The Sum of Us, that what happens to one of us happens to all of us, and how do we spread that message? And there was a perfect example in our group, Group 7, because in that group there were people from Inglewood, from Leimert Park, from East LA, and also from Hermosa Beach. And the person from Hermosa Beach brought up, hey, in my neighborhood, I'm struggling with asthma. I have air pollution that's impacting me. So it's, it's coming to all parts of our county. And so another example is that we all share the collective responsibility to deal with these issues, and that it's all interconnected. So we talked about, housing injustice and the plight of the unhoused, and how, some folks see that as, pollution also being created by, trash being put out in, from folks living on the streets. But what you don't realize is that that the issue of the unhoused is the issue that all of us should be caring about, because that same stuff that gets left out in the street goes in the ocean, continues to pollute the rest of us and the air. And the problems that our county faces is everyone's collective problem, not just the folks that happen to be the neighbors to that refinery or the neighbor to the person who's unhoused. We should all be taking a collective action to come up with solutions. So then we talked a little bit about how do we implement change, and there was a very real discussion about acknowledging privilege, that some folks, folks that have means to show up at meetings at 10 o'clock in the morning might be the same folks that are very privileged and may not have the same type of impact that folks that are right by a refinery, right by the ports, right by a rail yard may be experiencing. And that wisdom from those folks actually living that experience needs to be heard by decision makers. And so how do we make it so that these meetings, this process is more accessible to community? How do we make information available to community members so that they can engage meaningfully in what's happening in their communities and influence policymakers to set the right policies to clean up that pollution? And then we talk about, tax the rich. I mean, it's a common thread here. We talked about those polluting industries that are making money hand over fist. We're talking about, the logistics empires, the shippers, all those companies that are making a lot of money, especially during the pandemic, made tons of money. They should be paying for that pollution. And how do we make them accountable, hold them accountable? So more to come on all of this. Thank you so much to my group for all your contributions, and what an amazing discussion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Group 8, send us home.
Okay, everyone pay attention. It's our last group.
and actually the most exciting group because we didn't just spend the last 10 days in some major voting stuff going on, right? So that was our group. My name is Crystal Mitchell. I'm the co-director of Recycling Black Dollars and a number of other things. For those of you in the room that know me, hey. I also have several podcasts, so that's kind of how they know me. But our conversation was about voting rights. And so and voting IDs and registration. So obviously in the state of California, we're very blessed because if you come out of here, you got some problems in other states. We can literally get to the polls, right? But what we did talk about is election day. There were some younger people in our group, so we're concerned about being able to take off or have that conversation, and I think that's been on the table. So making it a little bit more convenient for them, maybe it's a national voting day, right? So they get to get off. Yeah, and even though we have early voting, one of the biggest issues, I think, was education. Probably most of us in this room into 2016, with the exception of a couple of people, 2016, you probably just saw your ballot, went to church, they told you who to vote for, and you went and voted, right? But in 2016, you didn't do that. So we talked about education, being able to understand the ballot, making sure it's clear, and then our facilitator even talked about maybe the county sending out groups to events to be able to register young people at the Sparks games, at the Laker games, at the Clipper games, so that they could go out. And also a mobile van that could do outreach in the communities starting early on to start educating people, making it fun and exciting and engaging for young people to vote. And all that other stuff from 1 to 8, that's going to be on the ballot this year. So make sure you guys. So I suggested, and this is what I do with my groups. We have voting parties. So we get together, we potluck it, and we sit and talk about the ballot. That's what we do. So that was our group, addressing the young people, making sure the young and the old understand what we're voting for, especially your judges, especially your college people,
yes,
especially your school administrators.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you all so much for the amazing ideas. You all, I think, well, I'll speak for the whole team, that you inspired us tonight. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to close out with plugging that they still have a lot of copies of The Sum of Us here. So please buy it. Support Village Well. Want to give a shout out to Village Well for hosting. Big shout out to Jen. She's in the back there. Let's give Jen a round of applause.
Before we move on from that, I heard a whole bunch of tax the rich. So before we get that done, how about we support our local bookstore? I just checked in, and only 10 books have been sold, and I'm one of them. That means 9, so you have plenty of time, not just to some of us, but there are a whole bunch of books in this bookstore. I know you got a lot of Leos and Virgos in your life. My soon-to-be 24-year-old just got his birthday gift purchased. So, and I'm a Virgo, so y'all can buy my birthday presents here in the bookstore, too. But birthday cards, socks, readers, is all kind of amazing things. So please, let's support our local small business by buying something before you leave. Please.
I think that's it. Yeah, please.
The next RJLE?
The next RJLE will be in September.
No idea.
Yeah, please visit our website, and under initiatives, you'll go to Racial Justice Learning Exchange. You can find all the future Racial Justice Learning Exchange events on there, and feel free to hand those surveys in to a staff member as you head out. And again, if you parked at Culver City Hall underground and you did not receive a validation, please come find a team member, and we'll give you a validation if we have any left.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.